Hello, and welcome to Sunday worship at the First Unitarian Universalist Society of Burlington, an open, welcoming faith community here in the heart of Burlington, Vermont. All are invited to join in our shared work of building beloved community in ourselves, among the members of the congregation, and far beyond its walls as well. We recognize that we are on the unceded land of the Western Abenaki, our meeting house is. And that recognition has led us to begin to embrace the work that calls us to do, to acknowledge the debts of many centuries and to find ways to cultivate our community in which all can coexist and thrive as beloved, treasured members of a multicultural community. May this be our Thanksgiving prayer. If you are new here and would like to know more about Unitarian Universalism and this congregation, you can click the link below this video on YouTube or go to our website, uusociety.org. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and we will tell you something about us too. I'm the Reverend Patricia Hart, developmental minister of this UU Society. And I'm here today, but I actually have a minor part in this service. The service is centered around a story that many of us know, the story of Stone Soup. This version of it was developed by the remarkable Reverend Erika Hewitt, and it was adapted not just to this congregation, but to this time of virtual online worship by Erika Reif, who's the director of Lifespan Faith Development here, and Margo Whitcomb, who's the faith development assistant, but is also a very experienced theater person. We are so happy to have Margo on our team. And of course, many thanks to the wonderful cast. This story of Stone Soup is about the miracle of generosity and about the truth that generosity doesn't always come easily. It's about hungry and desperate people who, despite their expectations, actually do find a way to help one another. It's about a community of people who felt powerless and who discovered that together they were actually powerful enough to change one small, important part of the world. Let us light our chalices together. Say the words with me. We kindle this chalice flame to remind ourselves of the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment. This morning's call to worship is from the work of the Reverend Joan Javier Duval, a friend of this congregation. She serves our sister congregation in Montpelier. Here is where you can lay it down. Lay down all that you have carried, the weight of the world that has rounded your back, leaving you aching and exhausted. Here is where healing begins, where burdens are set down. Alongside one another's, their magnitude does not seem as great. Here is where the door is thrown open, and the light can lift away the shadows, and what was hidden can now be seen. Here is where you can rest, where nothing is expected, but that you bring all of who you are into the presence of the holy and of this loving community. Let us worship together.
Come, come, Though it had barely begun, winter promised to be long and lean for the people of the village that year. The summer had been a dry one, and the stores of food that had been carefully put aside during the fall harvest were unusually meager. It would be months before the tender green shoots of new plants would come up through the rich soil, before plump fish would return to the rivers nearby. The families in the village did their best to make do, but the scarcity of food and the isolation were taking their toll.
Hey, look! There are some people on the road!
In this cold and fog? 2 of them! I wonder who they could be.
I don't recognise them. Why would any of us even visit here in these times?
They're strangers! I think they must be lost!
I can't imagine who would come to our village now.
I hope they're friendly.
What if they're enemies?
Do you think they could be dangerous? Or contagious?
Maybe a neighbour will stop up someone and find out.
Good morning and peace to you. Who passes this way?
Greetings and peace to you, gentle friend. We are simple travelers on a long journey.
We hope to rest our feet for the night, share some stories and a meal, sleep among friends, and return on our journey in the morning.
You come in peace and are in need of rest. Welcome. We are a humble village, but a friendly one, and we long to hear your stories and news. We have warm fires that will keep you safe and comfortable as you sleep. But a meal, you say? You want to share a meal? Do you bring this meal with you?
We bring news and stories.
And some lovely stones and seashells that I picked up along the way.
You and those silly seashells and stones. You just had to pick them up. We bring important news from the cities on the far side of the mountain.
We bring stories of intrigue and suspense from those who have slayed dragons and lived to tell the tale. We bring the juiciest gossip of the new king and queen.
But we do not, I beg your pardon, bring a meal.
Unless you want to chew on my seashells, though I would not recommend it.
Well, our offer of a fire and friendship still stands. You may join us for this day and night, but we beg your understanding. This has been a poor harvest. We have very little food to get us through the growing season. There's barely enough food for ourselves, so we can't provide you with a meal.
Thank you, gentle friend. We understand, and we appreciate your simple sanctuary this day and night.
Drat, I'm hungry. What are we going to do? How will we eat?
We'll think of something. Just stop it with those seashells and stones. It's driving me crazy.
As we let this story wash over us this morning, let's sing together this hymn. Come, come, whoever you are. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. 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 Ours is no caravan of despair.
The two strangers were happy to enter the village. They found a beautiful glade of trees where they could be comfortable. As they settled in, their growling stomachs reminded them that while they'd met with good fortune in this village, it wasn't outstanding fortune.
I'm hungry.
So am I, friend.
All I can think about are golden griddle cakes made from the finest cornmeal.
Oh no, don't you speak of food. You'll just make us hungrier.
That's what I'd like to eat right now. A big stack of griddle cakes with juicy blueberries and wildflower honey on top.
Did you hear what I just said, though?
And I'd like to eat a platter of succulent grilled fish with roasted vegetables and sea salt.
Am I talking to myself? Please stop.
Fish with potatoes, roasted little potatoes, crispy, salty little potatoes.
If you don't stop, I'm going to leave you here to rest and I'm going to find someplace else to sit. See if I don't.
To tell you the truth, I'd settle for a nice hot bowl of soup. Too bad all we have here are these stones. It was silly to pick them up. You can't make soup out of stones. Nope. No.
That's it. Stone soup, stone soup. That's all you can talk about. It's driving me crazy. Stone soup, stone soup, stone soup. Hey, wait a minute. I've got an idea. Can you please show me one of your prettiest stones?
Now you're interested in my stones?
I have an idea. How would you like to make some magic with this little stone and maybe get a meal out of it too?
I can't imagine how, but I'm all ears. Tell me more.
Is it magic? Is it magic we're hoping for? Perhaps it is. The magic that can come when we allow ourselves to love. When we allow ourselves to believe that the beauty and the worth of others is good, is enough. That disappointment and fear are not our only fate. Spirit of life and of love, too often when we see someone in need, when we see someone who is hungry, when we ourselves are hungry, our hearts can turn to stone from fear and grief. And that stone manifests sometimes as indifference or irritation or just a closing of our hearts. What would it take for us to turn instead to patience, to compassion, to mercy, to forgiveness, perhaps the hardest of all, starting always with ourselves? Take a breath. Breathe in the breath of life. Breathe out the breath of peace. Come into this place of holy listening. Some words of joy and sorrow for this day, Sunday, November 22nd, 2020. Joy for the ability to connect with my mom through technology, even as visitation has become unwise due to virus spreading. Fear for our country, as its highest and best values are assaulted. May we, all of us, find the strength to insist that truth and justice can and must and will prevail. And prayers for those who are our leaders, prayers of comfort and faith and hope. May we remember that their strength comes in part from our faith and strength and persistence too. May the joys and sorrows of each be the joys and sorrows of all. Let us be silent for a moment together.
What hardship! The villagers seemed hungry or stingy, or both. It was hard to tell. What was clear was that no one would be offering any food to the strangers anytime soon. But then the strangers went to the town square and they asked the villager they had met for a big cooking pot. She was, of course, perplexed because there was nothing much to eat, let alone to cook.
Curious villagers joined around the square and watched as a fire was laid and cooking implements arranged. The strangers announced that some of the stones they'd been carrying were of the magic variety, and that they would thank all the villagers for their hospitality by making stone soup.
Stone soup is appetizing and delectable, and it's very simple to make. All you need is the right stone, which we have, and our soup will be on the way.
Stone soup? I've never heard of such a thing. It doesn't sound very appetizing.
I feel like I could eat anything. Is it ready yet?
Not yet, friend. Not yet. Stone soup takes a while to prepare. It'll be ready by and by.
Where did you learn how to make stone soup?
Is it a traditional food from your homeland?
That's right. I mean, yes. Both of us have made this soup many, many times.
Oh yes, many times. Although this batch of soup probably won't be as good as last time. Remember when that?
Oh yes, nothing could be as good as that soup. It tasted as though the angels themselves had made it.
Heavenly. We might be able to make it as good as that soup. If only.
If only we had an onion or two. If only we could add some onions. This would tempt the gods themselves.
I might be able to help with that. I have some onions down in the cellar. I was saving them for, well, it doesn't matter. Would you like these for the soup?
Come to think of it, I saw a carrot or two somewhere. Maybe these could have some flavor.
Ah, yes. Now it's becoming sublime soup. Yes, stone soup, sort of sublime with the onions and the carrots. But to be truly sublime, we'll need to add something else.
Excuse me, friends. I don't want to interfere with your magical soup, but here's some potatoes I've stored.
And remember those parsnips we had a few of? We'd like to offer these parsnips for your soup.
Certainly. This is delightful.
Yes, this is. Superb. Sublime.
One by one, the shy villagers became bolder, stepping forward to reveal that they had small treasures in their cellars and cold stores. Every time someone brought forward a small contribution to the soup, the strangers gratefully accepted it and stirred it into the pot.
And so the soup continued to simmer, now filled with an assortment of vegetables and grains, and releasing its tantalizing aroma throughout the village. Everyone's mouth was watering, and stomachs grumbling to think of eating such a fine meal. The stone soup was nearly complete, and the villagers' hope and gratitude began to drown out their thoughts of hunger.
This congregation has another November tradition, and that is a collection for JUMP. JUMP stands for Joint Urban Ministry Project. And until 2 years ago, until November 2018, the tradition was that in November, members of the congregation would be encouraged to go to the grocery store and buy $25 or $30 worth of groceries and personal items, and then on the Sunday before Thanksgiving to bring them here to the service. I want you to imagine, if you will, this space filled. Maybe some of you can remember what it looked like, and if you were not here, you can imagine this whole chancel space filled with grocery bags. The idea was this was happening in many congregations in the city, and the very next day, on the Monday before Thanksgiving, volunteers would gather up all those hundreds of grocery bags, take them over to First Congregational Church, lug them up to the 3rd floor where they were sorted out into bags for JUMP clients, people who needed the food and the personal items because they could not buy them themselves. It had already begun to be clear by a year ago that this system was not really sustainable. Many of the JUMP volunteers were elderly. It was hard for them to move all the grocery bags, hard for them to lug them up to the 3rd floor. And the truth is, money actually is not only more efficient, it actually works better. If you put funds in the hands of people who need to buy food and get gas, then they can make the choices that are best for them. So last year, in 2019, the director of JUMP, Wanda Hines, came and stood here in this sanctuary and said, "We really love how generous this congregation has been with the grocery bags in the past, and this year we'd love it if you would give us money." And last year, those funds were used almost exclusively for the transportation initiative, which allowed JUMP to give gas cards and bus passes for people who needed gas to get to their jobs, or a bus pass to get to a medical appointment or somewhere else they needed to be. And it worked. More than $5,000 was contributed by members of this congregation alone, which far exceeded our expectations and was wonderful. And then the pandemic started. Since March, JUMP has not been able to see clients in person. They have transitioned to an entirely online and telephone client contacting system, which has worked remarkably well. People call and they mail grocery cards and gas cards and bus passes to people. And while JUMP has always helped somewhat with utility bills, that is now a major request from clients. And JUMP is routinely paying those bills this year. The need is great and very much appreciated by JUMP clients. So we're about to take up the offering this week. It will be shared, as it always is in November, with JUMP to support their programs. And I want you to know that your gifts will make a very concrete, very real difference in the lives of very real people in this community. Whatever you can give will go to serve the needs of people who maybe are feeling powerless. We can know that together we can be powerful. This morning's offering will now be most gratefully received.
With gratitude, we dedicate these gifts in the service of our mission to inspire spiritual growth, to care for each other and our community, seek truth, and act for justice. Finally, the meal was ready. After cooking for an afternoon, the strangers and their magic stone had prepared a soup that was ready. No matter how old they were, no matter how young, every villager had his or her fill of soup from the bubbling pot. Everyone agreed that it was the tastiest soup they'd ever eaten. That night, the villagers slept soundly with full bellies and grateful hearts. It was a little easier to believe that spring, with its bounty of food, was just around the corner, and it was satisfying for the villagers to reflect that upon welcoming strangers, they'd been given a gift they never expected.
John came early the next day, and the strangers prepared for their journey. As they stepped out onto the road, a few of the villagers came to see them off.
Must you go so soon?
Go we must. Our journey continues.
Before you leave, please, I have 2 questions for you. 2 questions that all of us have been talking about since our meal. The first is this: why did you take such kindness on us?
It was you who were first kind to us, friend. You welcomed us into your village. And you liked my shells. I always appreciate it when people like my shells.
Well, our kindness was more than about repaying your kindness. It is our way, and the way of our people. It is as they write in the holy texts.
What holy texts?
In Hebrews, it is written, "Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for by this some have entertained angels without knowing it."
And in Leviticus, if a stranger lives among you, do him no harm. Strangers living among you will be like your own people. So treat them with love and respect, because you were once strangers.
Also, we like soup.
Thank you. Thank you for entering our village as strangers and leaving as friends. Oh, wait, one more thing. Where did you get that magic stone?
But the strangers had already rounded the bend in the road. Their answer was caught by the wind and carried into the treetops. The villagers never found out exactly where they had found that magic stone. However, the wisest among them over the years realized that the stones were all around them, right before their very eyes.
We gather together in joyful thanksgiving, acclaiming creation whose bounty we share. Both sorrow and gladness we find now in our living. We sing a hymn of praise to the life that we bear. We gather together to join in the journey, confirming, committing our passage to be a true affirmation in joy and tribulation. When bound to human care and hope, then we are free.
Say the words with me. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and share with the world until we are together again. Our benediction today is from L.R. Knost. Do not be dismayed by the brokenness of the world. All things break, and all things can be mended. Not with time, as they say, but with intention. So go. Love intentionally, extravagantly, unconditionally. The broken world waits in darkness for the light that is you. Go in peace.